Can Kanosuke join an elite group where the sequel is better than the original? Welcome to Kanpai Planet, I'm Mac, and today we're putting Single Malt Kanosuke 2021 second edition to the test. It's been a busy few months for the Kanosuke Distillery since the release of their first single malt on the 16th of June 2021, which I've reviewed on Kanpai Planet. Check out that video for pretty much everything you'd want to know about the distillery. Since then, they've spun off the distillery from former parent company Komasa Jozo, they've released their first distillery exclusive single malt, and they announced that Diageo, via Distill Ventures, have taken a minority stake in the distillery. I discuss all of that in my video reviewing the double IPA finished distillery exclusive single malt. Despite that hive of activity, they've still found time to release this Single Malt Kanosuke 2021 second edition, distilled in 2018 and released on the 12th of November 2021. It's 3-year-old real Japanese whiskey, fully compliant with the standards announced in February this year. 5,000 bottles of this have been released here in Japan. There are plans for an overseas release, primarily in Asia. If you can lay your hands on one at RRP, it'll cost you 13,750 yen after tax, which is about $125 US, the same price as the first edition. Now that's about 50% more than the first single malt bottlings from, for example, the Shizuoka Distillery and the Sakurao Distillery. Why? Well, why not ask the man at the top? I asked President Komasa why his whiskies had this premium, and this is what he had to say.
まずはこのロケーションの中で、熟成をさせていくとですね、この南の鹿児島というところで熟成させるとエンジェルシェアというもの大変高くなります。通常であればだいたい 2% が程度、2から 3% 程度のエンジェルシェアが、我々の場合だと6% から 7% 年間、どうしても蒸発、エンジェルシェア持っていかれるというようなところもありますし、あとは、ファーストエディションっていうふうなところで、それなりに、中身に対しても、こだわっているところもありますけども、外観に関してもこの特徴というものをしっかりとお伝えをしたいというふうなところもありましたので、ここについては、価格は、高いか安いかというふうなところはその、消費者の、価値の基準の中で捉え方が変わってくると思うので、これを適正だというふうに捉えていただくお客様に、認めてもらえればなというふうには思ってます。
Hearing him say that value means different things to different people resonated somewhat because I said a similar thing in my review of Yamazaki 18, which you can find here on Kanpai Planet. Let's check out the packaging. The side of the box of the first edition showed sand from Fukiagahama, the beach where the distillery is located. It's Japan's longest sand beach. For the second edition, we're treated to the sea, a drone shot of the waves breaking at Fukiagahama Beach. The bottle has the same design as the first edition, and President Komasa considers that part of the value proposition.
この、ボトルのデザインは完全オリジナルですと。ここは蒸留機の形状をイメージしているのと、ここの、グラスの厚み、これも日本の職人が作ってくれたものでもあり、さまざまな手間をね、加えて、作ったものなので、そういうふうな思いを感じ取っていただけると、その対価というものに対する、気持ちを対価の交換なので、価値の交換なので、そこは、汲み取っていただければなというふうに思いますね。
It's 57% ABV. Yes, the angel is definitely having fun down there, gorging herself on a fill strength of 63%. It's non-chill filtered and natural color, and this natural presentation and the transparency of their information is one reason why they've been making fans amongst whiskey aficionados. Now, the liquid inside this bottle has been made with unpeated malt, like the first edition, using all 3 of their Miyake Industries pot stills. I'm standing in front of Kanosuke's pot stills, all made by Miyake Industries. We've got the wash still over there, spirit still 1, which is a hybrid still, and then spirit still 2. During the distillery's first season back in 2018, they filled 100 recharred ex-shochu casks, 100 recharred first fill bourbon casks, and 30 Oloroso sherry casks. Their first edition was made up mainly of liquid from those ex-shochu casks. The second edition is made up mainly of components from the ex-bourbon barrels, with components from the sherry casks making the second biggest contribution to the liquid inside here, and they've been finished in recharred casks and wine casks. As a result, I'm expecting this to be a little more mainstream than the first edition. Let's see if expectation meets reality. Oh, that's a lovely amber colour, reminding me of the sunset at the distillery itself, looking out over the East China Sea. And the depth of this colour is another example of Kanosuke's accelerated maturation, methinks. On the nose. The first note that comes to mind is a floral tea, a hibiscus tea. This is then joined by some classic bourbon barrel vanilla. I'm also getting some apple and some lemon. Kanpai. Ooh. It's been said before, and it's going to be said again. This does not taste like a 3-year-old whiskey. I'm getting this really deep sweetness, but not cloying, like a really rich honey. There is some spice there in the form of cinnamon, that citrus that was there in the form of lemon on the nose, now more like grapefruit on the palate, and there is a hint of salinity. On the finish, that sweetness I talked about on the palate is met with a bitterness. There's a word for that, right? Oh yeah, bittersweet. And it really is bittersweet because I think that's going to divide people. Some people are going to love it and others less so. So what's the verdict? Overall, very good. It really shines on the palate where that deep sweetness meets that cinnamon and meets that citrus. A lovely dram. Thank you to all our viewers and subscribers. I truly appreciate the support. Stick with us because there's much more to come on Kanpai Planet. I think it's time to put this head to head with the first edition. I've previously reviewed the first edition in detail on Kanpai Planet. I've brought it out today to see what we can learn about the second edition through this comparison. Color-wise, they are similar. The first edition is a little bit darker on the nose. With the first edition, that sweetness goes a different way. You've got more prunes, figs, dates, raisins, and fruit in the form of berries. Kanpai. On the palate, the cinnamon is a commonality. This dram, it's a lot more mellow than the second edition. That's a word they throw around a lot down at Kanosuke. The ABVs here are very similar. The first edition's 58% versus the second edition's 57%. On the palate of the first edition, that citrus has a bit more zest, more lime than grapefruit. And for those with good memories, yes, I am still getting barbecue pork fat on the palate. With the finish of the first edition, there's a little bit more salt and brine here than there is in the second edition. And that bitterness is there in the first edition, but it's more integrated than in the second edition. Interestingly, as I'm going back to the second edition and my glass is almost empty, the aroma in the glass is now peaches and apricots. Really lovely. Head to head, that's a really tough one. The first edition has more cask influence, while the second edition puts more focus on the distillate. Should I call it a draw? No, this is not a Japanese baseball game. I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to give it to the first edition. That shochu barrel aging and what it did to the spirit made the first edition something different and memorable. The second edition is still a great whiskey and it has its unique points, but it is a little bit closer to something you've probably tried there or thereabouts. Definitely try both of them in a bar if you can, and if you are able to snag a bottle at the Japanese RRP then do so, because I really feel that Kanosuke are making some of the best whiskey to come out of Japan's new wave of distilleries. What are we going to see from Kanosuke going forward? Well, we can expect more limited cask strength releases before a flagship single malt whiskey in 2022. The sequel is not quite as unique as the original, but let's just celebrate the birth of another great, real Japanese whiskey. Until next time, Kanpai.